Great speakers conversation around the globe. This is Relaks Radio.
It's time for a show on Relaks Radio. It talks about me and you. It's time for a show on Relaks Radio. It talks about me and you. So listen to us, yeah, 24 hours, and let the happiness come to you on Relaks Radio. Tune in to Relaks Radio.
Relax Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Relax Radio. Like I said, I'm Regina, and today with me I have George. Introduce yourself, George.
Hello, my name is George.
So, like I said, today we'll be talking about some politics, current affairs. Do you know what's happening right now in Nigeria?
I've gathered quite a few bits of it. Mostly the fact that the police are shooting people.
Yes, so police brutality, it's rife. This year has been quite difficult in the sense that we've had George Floyd in America, countless different stories, to be honest, that too many to even talk about. And right now, currently in Nigeria, yesterday, at the Lekki toll gate, peaceful protesters were shot at by the so-called Special Armed Forces unit. Oh, what's it? Special Armed Forces.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but yeah. So
it's especially appalling because just yesterday, if you listen to the Wednesday Witcher that just happened just before this, you'll found out that actually 72 people died in just one of these massacres.
72.
Yeah, in just one. And there's been a whole bunch of different ones, different towns and cities.
Yeah.
It's been horrific.
And it's kind of difficult to find out exactly what's happening, because obviously with social media, that's where I get majority of my news from, and there's so much out there. So you don't know what is true, what is fake. Like you said, 72 people died. I didn't even know that. I read it was 7 people that were wounded, but it seems that it's kind of difficult to sort of find out what's going on. And
there's been a lot of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I've been hesitant myself on ascribing the numbers. I will roll back and quote the fact that number was said by my guest at that show as well.
Yeah. I mean, here, like we said, we don't, I don't want to sort of relay sort of wrong message or information, but from what's happening right now, what I've seen on Instagram, in Nigeria right now, it's pretty terrible. Like, the political corruption there is it's astounding, to be honest. It's interesting because Nigeria has some of the most highest paid politicians. Yeah, it's a country that's sort of rife with poverty, and its people are not taken care of, and it's especially abhorrent that this is happening right now. So yeah,
those are two stats which often go hand in hand together. It's long economics. I could discuss forever about it. But
I mean, go ahead if you want to.
But basically, the short summary is the fact that the politicians are so well paid, and the fact that the people themselves, the country, is so mistreated and mismanaged and poor, are directly related things. The fact is, when you have politicians whose interests don't lie in the, if you will, the national interest, whose salaries are guaranteed to be really high, to be really cushy, very nice, and the rest of the country be damned. Well, of course they're going to take policy positions and support ideas that are like, I'm just going to feather my nest a bit more, I need to have a third Fabergé egg in my collection. And, the country? Who cares about the country?
Yeah, it's shocking. And a lot of people think, well, it's not happening here, we can't possibly relate. But, the political situation right here with our MPs and stuff, the bonuses that they get and the sheer amount that they're paid, and the fact that Boris Johnson wants to stop free school meals for little kids and stuff. It's shocking. So it's something that I think it's worth talking about.
Do you want a hot take on that?
Yes, I would like to.
All right, here's my hot take.
Okay.
I don't think MPs in Britain are actually paid enough.
Really?
But there's two big caveats on that.
Mm-hmm. Very big.
Yes.
Would you like to expand?
Yeah, one of them is the fact that, but not the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister actually does get paid more than enough. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking about, the regular backbench MPs.
Well, yeah, for example, the MP for my borough, Barking and Dagenham, I'd say that she does a lot. She is with Labour, and perhaps the work that she's doing is not recognised. And so I see your point, but
there's especially something that's really noteworthy, because the sort of expectation that we have for Parliament for MPs is that it's going to be, we want qualified people, we want intelligent people, we want people, with a lot of civic duty.
Yeah.
But people like that, heck, they can even earn more. Now, depending on what their exact specifications and qualifications are, they can earn more being in charity. It's there's always the classic chestnut. It's the CEO of Greenpeace earns millions. Mm-hmm. That's clearly someone who cares a lot, though, about the environment.
Yeah. And
has an attitude of I'm going to use my skills for good. If you're the CEO of Greenpeace and you decide, I'm going to go care about the environment and do something, what am I going to do? Oh, I could become an MP and get a fraction of my salary. Mm-hmm. And it's the same in business as well. There's a reason why we often have a lot of business failures end up as MPs. Mm-hmm. And for real journalists, it's oh no, I'm a journalist who's lost all credibility. Time to become an MP.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a career choice that I'd be willing to consider, to be honest. But still,
I'd absolutely do it.
But what's your second caveat, like you said?
My second caveat is how there should be, for Britain, a very, very strict divide between MP and other jobs, to the point where I would outright ban an MP from doing any other job. So you often see these stories of this MP has this job as an MP, but they also are a regular columnist for a newspaper. Mm-hmm.
It's a bit unfair, to be honest.
I'd get rid of that completely.
Yeah.
I'd even go so far as to say that beyond maybe some special features for newspapers that you're not allowed to write from, and that goes for all other businesses. You're not allowed to have shares. No, they should be divested. Yeah. You should be not allowed to be consulting, anything like that. Mm-hmm. I'd ban immediately for an MP because their interest should be the constituency and the nation. And if you've got business interests in other things, that's an influence that goes into your vote.
Yeah.
I mean, look how many MPs, it's 2/3, 3/4 of MPs are landlords who rent out properties. Mm-hmm. How can you expect then Parliament to vote, for laws that might be, benefiting tenants?
Yeah.
If they have a direct financial interest.
Absolutely. And it's, you can see why there's a lot of support for people like that. For example, if we take what's happening right now with uni students, how they were sort of encouraged to move into their accommodations and to pay, using their little student loan, rent and stuff. It's extortionate prices, in my opinion. And, but those landlords, they obviously benefit from the current government we have right now, and it's a bit unfair that university students are paying £9,250 right now a year in tuition, plus maintenance fees and all that. I can see why there is a lot of unrest in that sense. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that's completely true on that. It's it does show, just with the same with Nigeria. It's when you have politicians whose interests lie in, a certain way of doing things. Yeah. The fact that they get paid a lot of money and then get paid extra money for doing extra jobs, and then extra money on top of that for, the corruption. And let's face it, there's corruption everywhere.
Yeah.
That starts to paint a picture of, a ruling class whose interests are in, hey, let's just make sure I'm doing well. And, if the rest of the country is, collapsing and police are shooting people in the streets and, there's anarchy everywhere, yeah, who cares?
I mean, like, the sort of human quality of, like, politics and stuff, it's totally disregarded. Everything right now is sort of business. What can bring in money? What can benefit me? And obviously, well, not me personally, but, like, people who are already in power, they're looking to gain more power in that sense. And it's by causing such, devastating and horrific stuff, like shooting in the protest right now with the SARS unit. I think it was disbanded on the 11th of October, but with the corruption, no one's really sort of taken control of that. No one's really giving anyone any sort of hope or guidance or anything, because politicians are, like I said, they're just focused on what can benefit them, what can bring them more money, and it's shocking right now. Speaking about businesses and stuff, businesses like, well, we know Google and Apple and stuff, they're sort of right now in Congo, there's this what's it called? The whole deal with coltan, the mineral that's used in in our mobile phones and stuff. A lot of it is being well, it's a natural resource in the Congo, isn't it? And it's sort of being, what's the word I want to use? All their resources are being used, and the country is so poor, and all these big businesses like Google, like Apple, they're taking advantage of these countries, and it's shocking to see. What do you think about that? Have you heard anything about that? What's happening in Congo recently?
I'm not completely familiar with the Congo thing, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But what I do know is the fact that sounds like a case of just classic power dynamics, where you have a nation both who's poor, but then also who's, in so much as they do have money, mostly comes from just resources grown from the ground.
Yeah.
And there's a general rule of thumb where if a country has all of its wealth be reliant from the ground, it's probably going to be a terrible place to live, because why would the government care?
Yeah.
They get all that. It's the same thing. The money that the government gets is all going to be from those resources in the ground.
But that money that the government gets, it doesn't go to the people. It's not used in the right sort of ways. It just goes to the politicians, who can just go on and buy their nice houses and buy millions of cars, and it's shocking. What's happening in Congo right now, it's not as widespread. It's not, the news is not really as popular as I'd say, right? And, there's a lot of comparison between what's happening in Nigeria, what's happening in Congo. A lot of people want to say that, what's happening there is not more important than what's happening here. And I'd say that's right. Obviously, you can't compare. Those terrible things are happening in both places, but they're still both worth talking about. It's just right now, if you see on Instagram, everyone's posting, end SARS and this and that. And it's becoming a sort of trend, like we saw with the Black Lives Matter movement. A couple months ago, before, we saw people posting their black squares and doing as much as they can, but that sort of died down a few days later, and it's kind of like I said, to me it looked like a bit of a trend that everyone sort of hopped on, and then not sort of I don't know,
it's
backed up, I guess.
Oh, it's interesting in many ways that you're talking about that it's died down. Because in in all of the situations you're mentioning, there are much more long-term trends going on. I mean, for example, for Nigeria and for the Congo, the thing you can't forget, of course, is the fact that in pretty recent memory, both of those countries have been war zones.
Yeah.
Nigeria, it was regionalized, of course. It was just in the north of the country. But, I mean, how many years ago now was it when those hundreds of school children were abducted by the Islamists?
Yeah,
it was like 6 years ago now?
Yeah,
it was
6-8 years ago, something like that.
I mean, and I know it was when Bono was was captured in basically a full-on siege.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was, 4 years ago? Like,
Yeah.
it's, those kinds of divisions, those kinds of, trauma from a full-on war, even if, yes, granted, regionalized, but, in only certain parts of the country, but you don't just sweep that up, in a millisecond.
No, of course you don't. But it's the sort of the spotlight that it gets on social media and the support from like big like, let's say, celebrities and popular figures, influencers. It seems like on social media you see it for a few days and then it's sort of wiped away because you're just fed the normal things again, like on Instagram.
But even then on social media, like you mentioned, like, oh, everybody just posted the black squares on for Black Lives Matter, and then everybody forgot about it.
Yeah.
My immediate thought was like, well, the people of Portland would beg to differ. Like, the protests are still going on there.
That's true.
There are still protests going on that I know of in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, in Wisconsin, Portland, as I mentioned. Seattle's had a really huge protest that, but they even took over a couple city blocks.
Or perhaps what I meant was, maybe my point was, like on mainstream media, this isn't really shown. If you look on the BBC and see it, and there's a lot of censorship going on around these specific topics because it's people like in mainstream media kind of don't want to talk about it. Would you agree?
About Black Lives Matter?
Well, about the protests and stuff, or if it is spoken about, it's sort of spoken about in kind of a negative light. A lot of people have strong opinions about the protests being violent, and they're sort of projecting this narrative across, and it's kind of really disheartening to see because although protests are still going on, peaceful protests in Portland, like you said, not everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's our job here at Relaks Radio to talk about this.
Yes, I would agree. But I would also say that you can sort of forgive the media for not focusing it on that much. Because, especially with America, they've got a really, really big, giant, all-consuming star of light that's taking all the attention called a presidential election. And I mean, it's kind of relevant. There's early voting started like 2 weeks ago now in the US. There's been record turnout, millions of ballots already cast.
Yeah.
And, the question of who's going to be not only just the president, but also then the senators, the Senate's up for grabs, who's going to be all the congressmen, especially with a Supreme Court justice on the line as well. Like, that's the kind of thing that would take up a lot of attention, but then B, also, that's going to dictate all of the policy, all of the Black Lives Matter stuff, what's going to be actually done. That's going to dictate all of the sort of questions about, how does the US react to, atrocities in Africa? That stuff is dictated by who is president.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of focus on, what are the goings and doings of Donald Trump and Joe Biden? What are they saying? What are their acts? Why should you vote for one or the other? And now part of me wonders, like, how much will all of that sort of change once the election is over and, we know, okay, who's this person's going to be president for the next 4 years. Right, what else did we miss?
Right. Well, speaking about the presidential elections and along those lines, we see the actions of Donald Trump. He's not. I read the other day he didn't want to take part in the last debate that he was supposed to be in with Biden, and it's funny how the presidential election is sort of it's all that's being spoken about in America right now. But if we look at I saw on Twitter that in places like you said, like Portland and where the protests are happening right now, a lot of it, in response to that, there's been a lot of sort of control from forces such as the army and setting curfews, and obviously the president has had a lot of influence over that. He's in charge, obviously. But with the presidential, what I wanted to say was that a lot of people are finding it hard to actually go and vote because of these curfews. They can't well, the exact places, like the polling stations, they might be too far away, or the curfew is already put in place by the time they find themselves wanting to vote. I know that there's like an online system that they can try, and a lot of it is not really sort of working for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people wanting to vote, and obviously they're hearing about all they're hearing about is a presidential election, and there's a sort of a block between that, because we find that these people, especially in these areas where they want change to happen, they want perhaps a new president to be in government, they're finding themselves not being able to vote, and it's sort of it's really annoying to see, because it's a mockery of the country and its whole system.
I fear for the US when it comes to that. One of the parties in the US, in particular the Republican Party, has realized, and has known for quite some time, but really realized that their interests lie in depressing and lowering the amount of people voting as much as possible. And
it's shocking.
It's terrible, and my argument whenever I talk to one of these people is like, just get better arguments. But they've been really focusing a lot of attention and a lot of efforts on making it difficult to vote. And it works. In the US state of Georgia, very swing state, but with a long history of being Republican. One in Atlanta, for just early voting. Remember, this is just early voting.
Yeah.
The lines are sometimes long as 6 hours. Like,
and it's their constitutional right to vote, isn't it? And so it's shocking that they're facing so much difficulty in doing this, and like you said, depressing the sort of amount of people being able to vote. It's taking advantage of a system that's already flawed in so many ways. It
again links back to what I said earlier. The fact is that the US as a country has been getting more and more unequal since the 1980s. Correlates very closely with Ronald Reagan, by the way, but details. No, we had the same thing with Thatcher, and look, the exact same trend. And where the sort of the difference between someone now at the lowest strata of society and someone in charge just grows bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And to the point now where the poorest person in the Senate is the far left guy, Bernie Sanders, has a net worth of over $5 million and 3 houses. Yeah. It's like, and he's the poorest person in the Senate.
And he's a person that's he's for the people. That's his brand. Let's say he's meant to be representing the masses.
His whole brand is that he is the populist. And he, as I said, he is the one of the least net worth of the Senate. There's 100 people there, and they all vote for powers. And yet he's more fabulously wealthy than any of us could really imagine.
Yeah.
And, if you think that doesn't influence their votes or what laws they decide to write, then I have a bridge to sell you.
Yeah, the irony there, it's shocking, to be honest. I think we'll go ahead and take a quick break. Remember, you guys can always call us here at the studio on the number 07852 473 473. We'd love for you to join in and perhaps be a part of the conversation. Conversation's going well, don't you think, George?
Yeah, I think that it's very interesting. There's a lot to sort of say.
Yeah,
politics is a big subject.
Very, yeah.
I also promise that you can call the studio. I won't bite your head off, but I will try to bite the phone.
But yeah, you always bring a sort of a wide range of points. So no matter what is being said, I'm pretty sure you always have something to say back. So
that's the idea.
That's a good quality. Like I said, we'll take a break. Remember, you guys should always download the Relaks Radio app to listen to our shows. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
আপনি হয়তোবা জানেন না যে রেডিও অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্ট ইজ 4 times more powerful than any other media. রিল্যাক্স রেডিওতে যদি অ্যাডভার্টাইজ করতে চান তাহলে আমাদেরকে আজই যোগাযোগ করুন on 020-7474-9292. আমাদের সাথে অ্যাডভার্টাইজ করুন from £99 a month. Increase your business by advertising on Relax Radio.
It's time for a show on Relax Radio. It talks about me and you. It's time for a show on Relax Radio. It talks about me and you. So listen to us here 24 hours and let the happiness come to you on Relax Radio. Tune in to Relax Radio.
It has been too long. No one has taken the initiative to know who you are and what you do. Well, Relax proudly presents Relax Media to unite and expose all media-related personalities under one umbrella. If you are an artist or maybe you're looking for one, look no further. Log on to www.relaxmedia.com. RELAKS media.com. In return, you get a free webpage and exposure to wider fan appreciation and contacts. Also, optional personal manager. Don't delay.
Relax Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Relax Radio. Like I said, I'm here with George.
Hi there.
Hi. So we were talking before about politics, what's happening in Nigeria, Congo, a little bit about America and their presidential election. I thought it'd be worth talking a little bit about COVID because that's all that's happening right. Well,
Yep.
It's the most important thing that's happening right now. There is a global pandemic going on. That should be noted.
And it will be a much more interesting subject than, you know, the Louis Theroux beard that I allegedly I'm supposed to have. No, the Louis Theroux beard, which at some point I should grow apparently.
Well, I said before that I'm getting a sort of a Louis Theroux vibe. I didn't necessarily say you should grow a beard, but I was saying that it'd be good to see you in TV and stuff.
Well, I'm very happy for the compliment. Thank you very much.
Like you said, what are you doing for your masters?
I'm studying journalism right now.
So how are you finding that?
Hard. It's
I can imagine.
It's like I came in for thinking, hey, you know, it's just journalism. I've been doing radio stuff for the best part of 3 years now. It should be fine. It's like, okay, so here's all the stuff about reporting. Here's all the stuff about how you do InDesign. Here's other stuff journalism module. Very foolishly, perhaps, I was like, oh, how to do TV production. I thought like, oh, this will be a challenge.
It's a very technical and very.
It's technical, but then there was also like, oh yeah, your assignments basically make a TV program.
Oh wow! Okay.
And it's like, yeah, so you know, have the pitch with all the costings and the money and the people and like, how many cameramen are you going to have? Who's going to be your guest? What's going to be your subject? It's like,
it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm just like, wow, look at all this new and interesting information, which I'd probably do better with if I had a journalism undergrad.
What did you do for your undergrad?
History and politics.
Oh, lovely.
Which, yeah, perfect for a show like this.
Yes. Well, for our show right now, it's very, we're talking about politics, so
Yeah.
with the right guest. So how are you finding the online classes? Are you doing, because right now with the current situation, you can't go to normal lectures anymore.
So what I've been doing now is something maybe slightly, familiar will be familiar to students now across the country, is that a lot of my classes are now online.
Yep.
And there have been the questions like, am I getting my money's worth? But it's like, but my thought's like, but yeah, because, a master's a good thing to have on a wall.
Yeah.
However, due to the exact course I'm doing, it's journalism,
Mm-hmm.
quite a few of the modules, I've been encouraged to actually show up on campus for. And so I
Mhm.
do go to the campus, 3 times a week to, 4
Oh.
classes.
That's quite a lot, to be honest. A lot of people, they're only going once a week, and it's just like for an hour.
Yeah, that's the thing. Especially like if I had to go really, really, really strictly, do I have to? Like, would it really, really, really?
Mm.
It's like I could probably get away with just going twice a week, honestly. Like
Mhm.
and even then, mostly with one of them, it's because it's like, oh yeah, here's how you use a program, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And very helpful when it's like, help, professor, the program's doing things it's not supposed to.
Yeah. Well, the question is it am I getting my money's worth? Obviously, you're still getting that education. You're still getting the sort of support, hopefully, from your professors and with any questions. But I guess a lot of people are sort of they're kind of questioning whether right now in this time with the COVID and the whole pandemic, whether it's worth going to uni, because like I said, it's dependent on what you're doing as a course. But say you're doing like a science and you need to be you need to go to like a lab and do whatever it is that you do. It's difficult when you're only going in once a week, and you're sort of, some people might find themselves not getting enough as they should be, or as previous students have gotten before. It is a bit disheartening.
I would agree with that, but I would also counter that with the sort of lockdowns and people furloughed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably going to happen again. Considering the way the winds are blowing in Britain,
Yeah.
that there'll be the question of like, what else will you do? And having extra education, having more knowledge about the workings of the world, and
Yeah.
also certificates that say you can do things.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a good bonus to have once the lockdowns are over, once everything's, well, I hope they don't go back to normal. I want change, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
once everything settles,
Mm-hmm.
you come out of it better. You're more marketable. You've got like hey, by the way,
Yeah.
now I'll be able to come out and say, oh yeah, I didn't spend the lockdowns
Doing nothing.
at home slowly going crazy.
Mhm.
It was, I actually went and got like this certificate, and look at it, it's really shiny.
Hopefully you would have learned something.
Yeah.
But with right now, I think because people just don't know what's happening or what's going on, what's going to happen in the future, and how long this is going to last, I think they are a bit disillusioned with the fact that, oh, what happens when I do get my degree? What about the current unemployment rate that's on right now, and the chances of getting a good grad job or your sort of dream job? It seems a bit like it seems right now there's less light at the end of the tunnel than there was before.
If things are sufficiently bad, and when I finish the masters, and things look particularly grim and dire, I'll just take the easy escape option and do another degree.
Yeah. That's a lot of people have taken that option, and I would really recommend that, because I'd say stay in education as long as possible. I'd done an undergrad in English, literature and language, and right now I wanted to go into I had loads of different thoughts. I wanted to go into publishing, and then I found myself wanting to go into TV and media production, and obviously I found an opportunity here at Relaks Radio to do my own show, get a bit of experience with sort of radio. It's not the same as TV, I know, but it's sort of media related, and it's been really fun so far. But like I said, when I graduated this year, I was sort of I was in a place where I just didn't know what I was going to do with myself. I found, I'm working currently right now at Debenhams, and I'd like to say it's not my dream job. So, there was a lot of I was questioning everything, like how long is this going to last with COVID? I think that's on everyone's minds right now. It's a tough time, but we're still keeping strong.
Yeah, that's all ultimately what it's all about, As you're saying that, I had lots of sort of thoughts about, I could go like, oh yeah, I could tell you about how long it will last, and like, oh, I could tell you like why and all that, but ultimately the basic truth that should be mentioned is like, yeah, this is a time where you have to wonder, like, what's going to happen? Where are we? Where's it going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the right decision? That's something I've been struggling with quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It's like, am I doing the sort of the right choices? Am I going to sort of regret like what I'm doing right now and all that?
Well, I
sort of
don't
thing.
think you should worry about having any regrets, because especially in a time like this right now, anything you do that if you're productive and like say you're doing you have a show here, you're educating people, that's something that must be worth a lot to you.
It is
something
yes.
of value.
Yeah, it is something that I do treasure and do quite like.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we shouldn't be completely disheartened about that, and it shouldn't discourage us.
Not completely disheartened, but
I was talking about me personally, but
okay. Well, I'm not completely disheartened, but the fact that the questions crop up for me at all are, hey, that's not normal kind of thing.
Yeah, nothing is normal right now, and there is a sort of it's weird because things seem back to normal. Like people are going to shops, people are going back to the pubs, they're meeting up with their friends,
and not social distancing.
No, not at all. If you look at any sort of pub gardens, they're full to the brim, because we've had quite a big economic hit with the whole closure of every single shop, all the restaurants, and we had that Eat Out to Help Out scheme, and we're getting one sort of message from the government saying, oh, let's boost the economy, let's have everyone back at work, which on one hand was good because at least people got to actually leave their houses and go back to work and do stuff, but the pandemic is still on. Hello.
Yeah.
And it's always in the back of my mind, like what's happening. I'm always I have these worries that there might be a second wave and it's going to be even worse than before, and we might have to be in lockdown for even longer. I know
a second lockdown will be worse than the first,
economically and sort of mentally as well.
Not even that, just socially.
Yeah.
Like I actually spent a whole episode once, like 2-3 weeks. You can listen to it on Relaks Radio, by the way, on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I basically went into forensic detail and realized, see, the thing with the first lockdown, right, is ultimately at the end of the day, a lockdown it's a social contract. It's a promise.
Mm-hmm.
The promise goes, we will take on, restrictions on our lives to slow down the spread of the disease, the society's part.
Mm-hmm.
In exchange, we expect the government to basically find a cure, find some way around it, find a solution to the disease, so that by the time we all get out again, we don't need to fear for our lives.
Yeah. And there's sort of hope. It's not being given to us in any sense.
Yeah, and a second lockdown really shows basically a betrayal of that, because it's like, we did all this stuff, if you will. We did all this stuff. We've spent ages at home. We were furloughed. We maybe even lost jobs, We lost all this stuff. And then you didn't hold up your end of the deal, government. Come on. That's not exactly a great mentality for a society that wishes to stay stable to have, is it?
No, and it just goes to show how unstable things are, and sort of how it's going to be for a while. I'm going to say, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and currently, right now, the government is putting money into schemes like the track and trace, and but we're not hearing any news about the progression of the creation of a vaccine or.
We actually do have some news on that, fairly recent.
Care to enlighten me?
Yes. I have two kind of big stories on this.
Okay.
So the first one is actually we've just very recently, there's not a vaccine, but it's related. Just within the last sort of 24 hours or so, just had the university in Singapore, the NUS, I'm not sure what the N stands for though, so I think it's National University Singapore, but don't quote me on that. Are claiming that they figured out basically a breathalyzer test for COVID, which they claim could diagnose you within 10 minutes or so.
Wow. I mean, that would change a lot because the COVID tests right now they're sort of they're terrifying. First of all.
Yeah, I mean, have you had one?
No, I have not.
I had one in July.
And how was your experience?
It consisted of like open my mouth and get a swab test, like swab like right in the back of my mouth. You know, right in that part where like when you tickle it, you vomit.
Oh,
it's
God.
like it right there. It's like ah.
Oh, that sounds horrible. Did
then,
you have to get it up your nose?
I did not have to get it up my nose.
Well, that's what I've been seeing, like in all those posters of the COVID test. You see that one, and it's just terrified me.
I'm very glad I didn't have to do that one.
And how long did it take for your results to come in?
Well, I was doing that one in Luxembourg, so they had an actual competent, proper system going.
Right.
And so I got my results back the next day, but still the next day.
Yeah.
And
well, that's good. I mean, here, it takes you 3 days? More.
Or longer.
Yeah.
As I said, Luxembourg has a proper competent government that knows what it's doing, whereas Britain is best described as like the Titanic.
Yes. With the glacier being COVID right now, we're all sort of falling off the boat and have no idea what we're doing. So
Yay.
Yeah.
However, the second story is that there are actually quite a few sort of trials out there for vaccines with as many as 200 different kind of variants proposed and being used. But the problem with vaccines is the fact that the thing about vaccines is you can make them actually very quickly. You can make one basically overnight, just like here's a sample of the disease viruses, hit it with some radiation, there, should be done.
Didn't know it was that simple, but
the complicated part is making it safe and making sure
testing it.
Yeah, and testing it, making sure it's an actual vaccine and not, something that will just give you the plague.
Right, and eventually just kill you.
And, doing all of that refinement, doing all those sort of iterations and the testing, like, does it actually work in the long term? I mean, the shortest vaccine I know development time was like a year and a half.
Wow.
Like, even though, like, in theory, you can make one super quick, but, this is medical science we're talking about here.
Yeah. And in practice, it takes a lot longer and a lot of work. A lot of people need to sort of realize that it's not going to happen like tomorrow. And with that, like you said, with testing and such, we need to ensure that everything is safe and following regulations and such. So I don't think it wouldn't be right to sort of promise anything so soon.
Especially since we know that these vaccines, they're quite likely to end up in the flu vaccine kind of territory. The preliminary tests seem to suggest there's like, this vaccine will probably only be effective about half the time. And
that doesn't seem very promising.
And there's also the fact is like, coronavirus actually is one that evolves pretty quickly because coronaviruses are actually very, very simple things, so they can change pretty much on the fly, which means that we'll probably end up, well, quite possibly we'll end up with something like a flu jab, whereas like, the elderly and, the very, very young get one every year, and that's, the rest is a tough deal.
Yeah, and like, currently right now there's questions of whether the NHS is going to be privatized, and there's a lot of concern surrounding that, and say that there is a vaccine that is available, and like you said, children and elderly people will be able to get it. But what about the working class that have been through furlough or have lost their jobs, everyone's going through this tough time right now. So
and especially, the working class, if you will, but it's like, it's just like some yearly thing. It's like, it's not a permanent vaccine.
Yeah.
Now that means every year, if you want to really stay safe from this disease that's twice, 3 times as deadly as the flu itself.
And do you think that we'd still have to keep on living this new normal, like everyone wearing their masks and socially distancing, which not everyone is adhering to? But I'd say that I don't know. That's
an interesting one because
obviously you wanna decrease the how it's spread, and the only way we can do that is by following these rules, these restrictions and such. But it's difficult because we'd have to find a sort of new way to deal with this.
Well, one way we could go to deal with it is actually by the very thing that makes the vaccine so hard, actually, is the fact that this virus does evolve actually pretty quickly. Which means, though, that it will get less deadly over time. Because, you see, there's a little simple truth when it comes to diseases. Dead sick people don't spread diseases very well.
Yeah.
People who are alive but sick spread diseases very quickly. And so, any strain of a disease that is less deadly, in evolution, is the one that survives.
Yeah.
And so, at some point, we will expect to see, COVID become less deadly. Even maybe there's even speculation it could just end up being like another flu variety. But the questions then are like, how long will that take, though? What is the
and how many people have to die for us to reach that point? It's
and even then, after that, it's like, is the flu level really acceptable? Still kills hundreds of thousands every year. The flu.
Especially with the symptoms with coronavirus, a lot of people are asymptomatic, so we just don't know,
and that's
exactly how many people are infected and spreading this. There's no way of tracking and tracing that as much as we try and scan these little barcodes on our phones and whatever.
Yeah, and it's especially sort of, well, on that one, a classic case of I've got two thoughts at the same time.
Go ahead.
One is, yes, you can. You just need a competent government that's willing to do so.
Yes.
The second thought, though, I had was well, that's where the concept of herd immunity comes in. Which, when you hear a government minister say it, good people at home, take that as they don't care about your life.
Yep.
But in terms of medical science, it is true, though, that if you have a disease spread through a population and lots of people get it, and then lots of people catch it, you do hit a point where even if there are still vulnerable people there, their chances of catching it are so low that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the same logic as to why we vaccinate loads of the vast majority of people, even when there are some people who can't be vaccinated, because it's imagine you're an immunocompromised person, you can't get, say, the tetanus vaccine. It's okay, you don't get the tetanus vaccine, which would mean in theory you're vulnerable to it. But since 99% of people in Britain have got the tetanus vaccine, your chances of actually catching the disease are so low that it in practice works like a vaccine. And herd immunity's got the same idea, except that those 99% of people were sick in the first place.
Yeah.
And spent a couple weeks, anywhere between asymptomatic and spending 3 months in bed going, why is my life so awful?
Yeah. I mean, people who have actually been diagnosed and have survived, they're saying that it's so painful. It's not just you have the flu. It attacks your lungs. You can barely move. It's one of the scariest diseases that we've seen in a long time. And
it looks like it does permanent damage in a lot of cases.
I mean, a lot of people have permanently lost their sense of smell and taste. I mean, I don't know how I could live with that.
Or the other one that's really common is that their sort of breathing capacity becomes much less, because the disease really goes aggressively against the lungs and erodes and destroys parts of it. Means you're perpetually short of breath all the time. Yay, how fun.
Yeah, it's shocking. You know what I heard? My friend told me the other day that, I don't know if this is true, but apparently smokers are sort of, what was it, I don't know. I don't remember but smokers are less likely to get coronavirus than non-smokers. Have you heard of that?
I have actually heard of it. And it's one of those things where it does kind of make sense.
In what way? Because I can't make sense of it.
Well, in the sense that, how should I put this? Say there is a sweet in a sweet shop, right? And two kids want to have the sweets. And one kid comes and takes it first.
Right.
smoking's basically the same thing. It's like the coronavirus wants to attack, certain cells in the lungs. But oh look, the cigarettes are destroying them faster,
Yep.
so they can't get any.
Yeah, that makes sense. But at least with smoking, it's a lifestyle choice. With corona, you're sort of, and it's tough. But I get what you're saying.
So it makes sense on that level, since it is going after the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, that probably would be a certain level of immunity based off sheer self-harm and destruction.
Yeah, but this is not us promoting smoking anyway. Which, but
I do not endorse smoking. I have very strong views against it.
Very strong. I mean, each their. I'm open with whatever. If you want to smoke, that is your health. That's your decision. As long as you're not harming people around you, smoking near a baby and stuff. Okay, but.
And I take issue of smoking near me as well.
Which, you're right. I mean, you shouldn't be have to deal with that and breathe it in. Come
Exactly.
on. So it's horrible, but
I'm smelling like this acrid stuff. It's like, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah.
No. it's like, where's my gas mask?
Speaking about the masks, I think right now masks have always in Asia, Korea, Japan, China. It's very common for them to wear masks when it's flu season, when people are sick in general, and we faced a lot of uproar because we just didn't know, are we meant to wear masks, are we not, this and that. We got a lot of mixed messages from the government whether they were actually doing us any good, and but if we look at it, makes sense that especially and now that winter is approaching and during a flu season, if everyone is sick, it makes sense that people should be wearing masks to sort of protect others, and I don't see it as a bad thing, but a lot of people have really strong views against it.
I'm on board the idea of even before this whole pandemic, it's you look at East Asia, everybody's wearing masks. It's oh no, I had the thought, it's oh, wouldn't this be really cool? Exactly. If we did the same, I was thinking at the time, I have to go on the tube and there's all these people, all these horrible germs.
I mean, you touch a pole, you hold onto a pole at the tube and you think, oh, I need to sanitize my hands straight away. But now it's so heightened because everyone's just freaking out about coronavirus. Really, we should have been doing this before.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit annoying.
Yeah, the other one on that is I've quite enjoyed is social distancing. It's a lot of people have been oh no, social distancing so restrictive. I'm look,
get away from me.
It's I like having some personal space. When I'm queuing in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And it's this whole. I know I've been really an outlier, but in so many different realms, I've actually really enjoyed the pandemic. I know, horrible as it is, because it's oh, social distancing. Oh, you mean personal space? Thank you. I rather missed it.
Right.
Masks? Oh, great. I was already very used to wearing masks anyway, but now I feel healthier. And it's oh, furlough? Oh, that's fine. No, for me, it's oh, that's fine. I could just go to the hidey hole called my parents' place and then spend the time riding a bicycle.
Right, and being paid for it. So, but yeah, I think it's just the adjustment has been really tough for a lot of people. And it's something that we've never experienced. So I get why a lot of people are not against, but questioning the point of it all. But yeah.
And I can't argue against the kind of why, and it's this is so inconvenient.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather much deal with the inconvenience than get coronavirus. So.
Well, that's a value judgment in many ways.
Yeah.
So it's I get it. But I can also say that last week, on last Saturday, I saw the anti-lockdown protest.
There was an actual protest.
Yeah, and it was really fun to watch because it was the who's who of who's crazy in Britain. Because it was there's anti-lockdown. It's okay, but oh look at the guy at the front. There's a guy with a Trump banner. Oh, but at the back there's a guy with an anti-5G banner. Oh, and in the middle there's the QAnon, solid. You've got a core base there. Over to the left you've got the guys with the Free Palestine flags, but on the right you've got the far right guys with the England flags. Oh, and there's one guy with a free Julian Assange placard. Oh, that's a shame. Those guys are really quite nice. Oh, but don't worry, there's a Pizzagate guy over there as well.
Oh, good old Pizzagate. It's yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see them all in one space together. You just see, oh, look at all the diversity, but it just it must have been quite an entertaining thing to see, to be honest. Yeah, I think we're gonna take a little break, and remember, you guys should download the Relax Radio app to listen to our shows. Listen to the lovely George's show. Like you said, what was your last show about?
My last show was...
You literally just did it, didn't you?
Yeah. I talked about a variety of things. I had a guest on and we talked about coronavirus again. We focused much more on like the medical science in that one. I talked about airplanes, talked about social issues, which was my guest's sort of specialism. And then I spent a full hour discussing phosphorus.
Full hour?
Yeah.
How long did you have to prepare for that? Or do you just, is this something that interests you?
It was something that interests me, but I did make a point to prepare for a bit of time.
Yeah.
And I've been just doing general research in like the wild anyway, because it had gotten into my attention. And I'll happily ring for this one. YouTube video by Isaac Arthur, who does a series of like, science fiction concepts, how they actually work in reality.
Oh, that sounds really interesting.
And
actually.
He's had this long-running series on the Fermi paradox, which is
what is that?
The Fermi paradox is the question of how could the universe be so huge and so old yet have nothing in it except us?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are the aliens?
Yeah, exactly. The age of question that we can't be the only ones here. Why is it like this?
And his latest in that sort of solutions that are put forward is actually that it's like, there actually isn't all that much phosphorus out there.
Right.
But phosphorus is extremely important for making...
Extremely, as you said.
Yeah. I talked to Regina before the show about what I just talked about. And you die if you don't have phosphorus in you.
Yeah, which I didn't know. So now I know, and now you guys know too. Like I said, we're going to take a little break and speak to you soon.
Relax Radio. Whoa, Relax Radio.
আপনি হয়তোবা জানেন না যে রেডিও অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্ট ইজ 4 times more powerful than any other media. রিল্যাক্স রেডিওতে যদি অ্যাডভার্টাইজ করতে চান তাহলে আমাদেরকে আজই যোগাযোগ করুন on 020-7474-9292. আমাদের সাথে অ্যাডভার্টাইজ করুন from £99 a month. Increase your business by advertising on Relax Radio.
It's time for a show on Relax Radio. It talks about me and you. It's time for a show on Relax Radio. It talks about me and you. So listen to us, 24 hours, and let the happiness come to you on Relax Radio. Tune in to Relax Radio.
It has been too long. No one has taken the initiative to know who you are and what you do. Well, Relax proudly presents Relax Media, to unite and expose all media related personalities under one umbrella. If you are an artist or maybe you're looking for one, look no further. Log on to www.relaxmedia.com, RELAKS media.com. In return, you get a free webpage and exposure to wider fan appreciation and contacts. Also, optional personal manager. Don't delay. Relax Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Relax Radio. Like I said, I'm Regina, and today we have George. We spoke a little bit about coronavirus, and what else do you want to speak about, George? Do you have anything that's sort of on your mind?
Oh, on my mind.
Yeah.
All right, you see, the asking me a question like that is never a good idea because
I don't
because
think
you
so.
see, look. The reason why isn't because I'll be like, I don't know. It'll be like, oh, I don't know. I've got like 5 or 6
There's
things
too
all
much.
at once.
Too many tabs
Which-
open in your head.
Yeah, it really is actually just like I'm constantly in like many tabs open. So let's see. Just during the break, we discussed a bit about spirituality
Yes,
because
we did.
this is Regina's sort of like hot seat.
Right.
So
I mean, I
there's a
wouldn't say.
temptation to talk about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's my hot seat. It's just what I wanted to sort of explore because I didn't really. I never really sort of found myself being very spiritual or religious before, but with lockdown and stuff, and coronavirus, and it got my it piqued my interest to sort of venture out into what other perspectives are there other than just the world is just a cold and harsh place. There's nothing out there. It is what it is.
Which is true, but
It's true, but I mean, sort of turning to spirituality or God or whatever you believe in, it gives you some sort of a bit of like a fairy tale that you can sort of indulge in, especially in a time like this, which I don't find. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
no, and it's an extremely common thing. Religion often, religious belief actually correlates very closely, and it in many times actually moves, like something that follows really closely. Like those little fish on the fins of sharks often. Whenever anything bad happens on a national level, the religious belief correlates, just goes up.
Yeah.
It correlates super close. So I'm really not at all surprised to hear that, during lockdowns and pandemics and fear about the future, that significant numbers of people decide to go, yeah, let's turn to faith.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, because with religion, it's completely dependent on how you grew up, what religion you were sort of exposed to, and what you were taught. But I think right now with spirituality and religion, it's very much an individual journey that you have to go through yourself. You have to and just sort of but sort of learn things about yourself and learn what you want to believe in, because we all have the freedom to do that. And it's been interesting for me. So
a very modern and very Western approach to spirituality, but yes,
yeah.
I do agree
Yeah.
with that it should be.
I mean, it's all I know. I've lived in the Western world my entire life, so.
And I agree, and it's an approach I very much agree with. I think that it's the sort of best way of approaching it.
Yeah.
Because it means that if your conclusions don't gel with what everyone else is thinking, then it doesn't matter. That's not what's important.
Yeah.
Which is why I have a really, really big beef with the fact that we have an official state church in Britain, and the fact that we have bishops who sit in the House of Lords.
Right.
It's like what? Excuse me, no. It's like,
yeah. Well,
not a fan.
the thing that really annoys me is how okay, so we have churches that don't pay tax and stuff. But there's this sort of not requirement, but expectation for if you go to churches, you're required to sort of support that with like, what's it called when you give money?
Oh, the tithe.
Yeah. And a lot of it, like, it's steered away from the faith and more towards money and such, because you need to, without the support of you, we will no longer be here. We can no longer preach and do this and that. And it seems to sort of like contradict everything that you thought you would be learning about, to me at least. And that's what kind of annoyed me. That's why I kind of, because I grew up, my parents aren't that religious. They do believe in God, and we're Russian Orthodox. So we couldn't go to church that often, literally only for like big holidays like Christmas, Easter and such. But my experience with church was very like not good. It just, first of all, it was always spoken in Russian, and my Russian's not good. I can understand a bit, I can't speak it at all, and it's very like repent for your sins, and it's a very heavy atmosphere. And as a child, you have no idea what you're doing, and we couldn't eat breakfast because we have to wake up at like 6 and be there at 7, and it seemed like a chore. But my grandparents are very, very religious, but they made it like a point not to force that down my throat, which I appreciate so much, because even though like they do comment from time to time, oh, do you not know like your little prayers or off by heart and such like that, but I don't, like it's something that they don't really sort of force onto me like that. I have to do it, or I have to follow these certain rules, because at the end of the day, it's your life and it's your choice, and that's what they want me to come to my own conclusion. If I want to become a devout Orthodox Christian woman, it's my choice to do so. So
that's very interesting. Like your story does fit our national level quite closely with Britain as a whole.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, the older generations tend to be much more religious than the younger ones, and that's something that's been true in Britain since about the 50s, about the 1950s, where it's like over time, each sort of successive new wave of people is less religious than the last one. And, you know, considering the fact that, and a lot of that I think is because of the fact that the past couple of decades have been, on the whole, fairly pleasant for Britain. Like,
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And so it is actually a bit of an interesting thought experiment, you know, we've discussed so many issues at the moment with inequality, then the pandemic, then of course there's climate change, which throws a wrench to everything.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a real possibility that, life in Britain could end up actively going worse, in which case could there be a revival in spirituality or in religion?
Yeah, very much so. I think so. I mean, a lot of people right now with this whole corona thing, a lot of people have taken they have this interpretation that, this is God's wrath, this is the rapture, basically. Everything that's happening right now, not that we deserve it, but we've had it coming, so to speak.
I don't know. I've looked at Rule 34 on the internet. I think some of us deserve it.
I think some of us do. Donald Trump, I'm speaking to you. But, I mean, it's interesting to say the least, and I definitely think there could be a revival in spirituality and such, but like I said, it is an individual experience that you'd have to sort of go on, and like it's a journey that you have to go on by yourself and see whether it's for you. Like, and there's so much out there. I think the most important thing you should take from this is just you should always have the a willingness to learn. And whether, even if you are atheist, like you said yourself before, you're an atheist, but you're still willing to learn about other religions and to learn about other perspectives, even though you want to like sort of argue your case.
Yeah, and I like arguing.
Yeah, which I get that sense, but it's you don't want to like I'm getting a sense that you don't want to like not hear about it at all, because it's still worth learning about. Why not?
Well, yeah, of course.
Like any other perspective from another human, like I mean, that's how we learn, don't you think?
Now that you mention this, there's actually something I'm quite curious about on a slightly related tone. Do you think that all of that applies when it comes to politics, like your political beliefs? Because it's you see, there's been a big story recently on how there's a bit of a kind of an internal civil war in Twitter because they're dealing with, kind of extremist opinions and like conspiracy theories of political nature.
Yeah.
And the CEO wants the platform to go after this stuff. But there's fair portions of the company which are like, no, these are political beliefs, these are political opinions. They should be allowed to air.
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter, everyone has the freedom to speak about anything and everything they want to. And once you start censoring some, it's just not fair to censor some and not everyone, And just censorship in general, it's not right to me. But I do understand that seeing this influx of sort of very extreme beliefs and perhaps are not aligned with your own, it can be a bit jarring to see that and consistently just see that on social media. I mean, there's a lot that you can do. You can mute certain words and accounts and such, but when it comes to like the big people in the company deciding whether they should have like the power to silence some people and not others, it's because a lot was speaking about SARS and stuff, linking back to like what's happening in Nigeria. A lot of influencers. Well, I think it was Miss Banks. She's a rapper, but a lot of her Instagram posts weren't being available. Like obviously we couldn't see them as fans. Like her Instagram lives were being cut off, and like a lot of her stuff was being censored because I don't know, someone perhaps doesn't want her speaking about what's currently going on. Perhaps she has a not a reputation, but like a image to uphold, and that probably doesn't align with what she's speaking about right now. But she has that freedom. She should have that freedom to talk about whatever she liked, especially with something so horrible.
Yeah, even when those beliefs would, or you could argue, hurt others. That's the thing. Would you say the same for some far right person who wants to, advocates genocide of minorities? And that's where the debate starts to come in.
I mean, it's hard to draw that line though, because it's just, we as people, I do believe we should have the freedom to say whatever it is, but it's difficult. It's difficult because there are a lot of people out there who have very extreme beliefs and want to express that in any way, shape or form, and whether that is like in an aggressive sense or forceful, or that's not liked by others. I wouldn't know how to deal with that line. That's probably why how to deal with that. That's probably why there's such an internal like you said, conflict and war going on at Twitter, because they themselves don't know how to deal with that.
Well, not so much they themselves. It's more like one half knows what they want to do and the other half knows what they want to do.
Right,
and they're not the same.
And they're both fighting over it. Yeah, I mean that's the recurring theme. Everyone's just fighting over something. There's no sort of peace anywhere.
Just give peace a chance.
Yeah. For humans, I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't know. I hear peace has got a very high Yelp review.
Right. Yeah. Same here.
Lots of people like peace. It's good when you get to lie down and you wake up in the morning hearing butterflies and birds and no bombs. It's like you can wake up and go, today's a good day to be alive.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have that luxury, and
this is a shame.
Yeah, it is. It's a big shame. But
and one of the things that's been quite annoying me with 2010s is this decade in general, or the decade that just passed, depending on how you count it, is, for a while anyway, I don't know whether that's still true, but it was basically the first decade in a long time where more people ended up in war zones than there were at the beginning. Like, basically a bigger percentage of people were living in war zones by the end of it than in the beginning. Now, of course, some of that was defined as like, oh yeah, there's a guerrilla group that kills 5 people a year kind of thing, but that's still a war zone, and that doesn't make those 5 people who died,
it still counts,
not real.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and well, yeah, it's it's horrible to think of, like, people living that there's been a slight or prevalent more and more kind of conflict growing out there, and all the horrors that go with it.
Yeah.
Best left unsaid.
Yeah, and it's a shame that it is best left unsaid, but it's first of all, it's hard to talk about, and
I'd happily talk about it, but
that's why
there are
we're
rules.
happy to have you here, George.
It's like, I'd happily talk about it, but there are rules, and like, I think people would start walking up to me and saying things like, "Oh, that's so morbid, George," and it's like, I don't want that.
I mean, there's certain social, like, you've got to have a certain social etiquette when it comes to things like that. But like I said before, you should have the freedom to talk about whatever you want, or debate about whatever you want.
But that is actually a very interesting point. Is that when it comes to sort of politics, there is often in many circles a kind of social etiquette. There are definitely sort of a lot of circumstances where if you say certain political opinions, prepare for a fight.
Yeah.
A classic one would be go to Liverpool and tell everybody, and this isn't barely even a political thing, but no, in anywhere else. But if you're like, oh yeah, my favourite newspaper there is the Sun, you expect to get punched.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. I mean, it's like, it's a social thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, social issues and politics, they interlink so closely that you can't really like distinguish.
Well, and why should they be distinguished? They're often the same question. The social issues are like, okay, here is what is happening. And politics is like, what decisions do we make to affect that thing?
Exactly, and that's why I don't understand why some people are like, oh, I don't want to get into politics, or it doesn't interest me, or it doesn't affect me in any sort of way, when it clearly does.
Oh yeah,
so
there's such a meme about it, like in the last election, where it was like, oh no, I'm not political, and then it was like, oh, but I hate
this and that.
Yeah, this, that. No, I hate the fact there's so many homeless people. I hate the fact there's so many immigrants. I hate the fact that the roads aren't don't get filled. I hate the fact there's so many cars and that the air smells so awful. I really don't like the fact that we're bombing this country.
Yeah.
And there's like this whole list of just like various things.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I'm not political, trust me.
Yeah, it's just it's so hugely ironic, because it politics affects you and influences you in a lot of areas in our lives, and like socially very much so. But I think what people don't like is the sort of, like you said, being prepared to fight. They don't like the sort of disagreements that come about it, because it is tough, especially like my mum. Me and my dad get into a lot of political debates, and it's not that we're sort of disagreeing with each other completely, but I'm raising a point that sort of, or a rebuttal that sort of like, I want to prove him wrong, basically.
Yeah.
And I think like there's nothing wrong with that, but my mum, when she hears that sort of arguing, because it can get a bit passionate, it can get a bit intense, but I think it's still worth talking about, because why shouldn't you? You want to be able to, you should have that the luxury of sort of knowing what other people, where they align their views, how they see things, and what you can do to sort of learn from them and what they can learn from you, because that's the only way. I mean, communication is so important, but if we start saying, oh, let's not talk about politics and social issues and stuff like that, it's just like, well, what can we communicate about then? That's not just so vapid and just, I don't know, not important, because I have a lot of, like I was saying before at work, you can have a lot of small chit chat about like, oh yeah, how was your day and this and that, but you can't really chat about things you want to chat about.
And you see, the thing about that is, ultimately on some level everything is political.
Yeah.
Even if for no other reason than you could be doing something that was political, but you're choosing to do this instead. It's like the even something like, oh, how was your day? If the answer to how was your day was, yeah. No, I had a really good time at the Black Lives Matter protest and we really shouted at Parliament. Like, a lot of people would consider that to be a political answer.
Yeah.
Even though it is to what, a fair number of people would say was not a political question.
Yeah.
Even though it would be honest.
Yeah.
And it would be, it's like, yeah. No, it's like, how was my day? I was at a protest.
Yeah.
Like, that was my day.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was, shouting at Parliament and waving a banner and, all that stuff.
Mm.
So, and then, of course, on the flip side, if the answer to the question of, oh, how's your day? Was like, oh, I did nothing.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. But then you could flip it and go like, oh, why weren't you at the protest?
Yeah.
And it's like, once you're at that point, it's like, it's obvious. Everything is political on some level.
Yeah.
So, from my point of view, as the loudmouth, hi, I'm a loudmouth in a radio station. No surprises that my view is like, it's a slight bit silly that, this kind of
I would
artificial
agree with you.
division of, oh, no, we don't talk about political things
Yeah.
here, even though there's so much that is.
Especially when people like to say, "Oh, these are such hard topics to talk about," or it's just too heavy, or whatever. It's not. It's like it's an opinion that you want to learn. Like just how like I want to learn about like what you think about religion and stuff. It should be the same thing. And also, religion is another like heavy topic in some people's opinions, but it's still interesting. It's still.
Of course, the truth of it, because this is one of those things I've really looked into psychology about.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, like, a lot of people, like, they even have like a whole personality matrix for it and so on. It's not so much like the disagreements per se or the politics per se that's trying to be avoided, but it's that a lot of people don't like conflict. They don't like.
Which
I
understand.
It's like, oh, I don't like. There's sparks flying. Oh, this must be bad.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
when
they see that intensity or perhaps like the passion, because you could be really passionate about a certain subject. You like you said, you're at a protest and you want to talk about it because that's probably what you did in your like with your day. Why shouldn't you talk about that? But when people see that, especially with topics like this, they just see, oh, conflicts are coming and I don't want to get into an argument right now.
Retreat.
Exactly. And it's just a shame, really, because a lot of people, they sort of hide their political views because they want to be able to get along with everyone, which I understand. But at the same time, if someone asks you, oh, what is your views on this, you shouldn't feel the need to censor yourself.
Yeah.
But a lot of people feel like they have to, and it's a shame.
And it's all well and good
but
until...
like you said, like before, it's all well, yeah, like it's well and good until someone comes out and says something completely ridiculous and extreme, and where you draw the line.
Yeah. Or snaps, which is another common one.
Mm.
And, one of the reasons when it comes on a national level, I'm so sort of against, like, having, like, strict kind of both censorship and, like, lockdowns on, like, in terms of law enforcement, because, like, if people are angry, let them be angry and voice that opinion and make it, and then get something done. Yeah. Because otherwise, what's going to happen is they're going to get so angry that suddenly everything will suddenly start to explode all at once.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the same idea. It's like someone's like, oh no, I don't want to do any conflicts. No, don't talk to me about that. No, I don't want any conflict.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, get grabbed at the rough of the neck. It's like, right, when are you actually going to do the dishes? I've been pestering you for 3 months.
Yeah. It's very much that. But I think we're gonna end this show right now. I mean, yep. Sorry to say that. Sorry to leave you hanging there, George. Is there anything you wanted to say?
No, not really. I was expecting you to say something.
Yeah, you was expecting me to end the show. Yeah. I think we've covered a lot, and I've had a really good conversation with you. Thank you for joining me on my show today.
It's been no problem. I look forward to seeing how the very, very kind resident man who labels all these things is going to label it.
Yes, I'd like. Yeah, because we covered so much. I don't know. I'm really interested as well.
It's just like it's titled like George and Regina. Oh no, it'd be your show, so it's Regina and George.
Exactly, Regina and George just talking.
It's like cover everything.
Yeah. So thank you for listening to me, Regina, and George here at Relaks Radio.
Hi.
We're gonna go now. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, I'm going to say it again, remember to always download the Relaks Radio app to listen to our shows. You'd be missing out on our very interesting conversation and George's shows as well. He's got a very interesting show. He talked about phosphorus. That was right?
Yep.
Phosphorus, right? And, I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Relax Radio. Whoa, Relax Radio.
আপনি হয়তোবা জানেন না যে রেডিও অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্ট ইজ 4 times more powerful than any